Hey guys, welcome back. And today we're going to be talking about crazy cultural practices. What do I mean by that? I mean certain traditional practices that may be considered disordered by certain psychologists. So, as we go through some of these examples today, you may feel that some of these should be considered disorders while others are completely normal. What do I mean by normal? And what do I mean by abnormal? And do psychologists have the right to label someone as disordered if they're willfully partaking in a cultural practice that they see fit? Let's take a look.
In rural parts of Mauritania, the generally accepted belief is that the fatter a woman is, the better wife she'll make. Being fat is seen as a symbol of status and wealth. Some areas of Mauritania still practice fat farms, in which older women of the community take young girls and force feed them. The government has recently begun trying to eradicate the practice by bombarding the region with public service announcements warning of the health dangers of obesity. The public service announcements aren't aimed at destroying the idea of a heavier woman being desirable, rather, the message that force feeding women is dangerously irresponsible. One of the most influential ways of changing the cultural mindset and combating the fat farm practice has been the influx of Western soap operas portraying thin actresses wrapped in glamorous clothing. But this also may be sending the wrong message. What do you think about this cultural practice? Do you think that the public service announcements directed at health concerns are appropriate? What do you think about the fat farms? Another interesting practice is the mourning of Muharram. This event reaches a climax on the 10th day of mourning, known as Ashura. Some groups of Shia Muslims join in an arduous practice that involves body whipping with special chains that have razors and knives attached to them. This tradition can be practiced by all age groups, and some children can be forced by their parents to take part. This custom is observed by people of Iran, India, Lebanon, Iraq, and Pakistan. Should this self-inflicted harm in this context be considered abnormal?
So, as you can tell, assessing whether a patient's problem is considered a psychiatric condition can be a little bit difficult in certain situations. So, in psychology, we have a system called the 4Ds. The 4Ds capture what some of us consider abnormal while evading some of the problems of cultural relativism. Once again, some of the problems.
So, what are the 4Ds? There's deviance, dysfunction, distress, and danger. Deviance is usually understood through the diagnostic criteria proposed in the DSM. It is something that is not considered the norm. But every culture has certain standards for acceptable behaviors, and we should not impose one culture's standard for behavior on another. In addition, it is important to be mindful that the concept of what is considered deviant changes over time and within the same culture or society. 40 years ago, most Americans would have considered men wearing earrings as abnormal, but today it's considered a difference in style. The second D, dysfunction, refers to maladaptive behaviors that are significant enough to interfere with the individual's life in some major way. In addition, it's important to look for dysfunction across multiple life domains. For example, if a child is acting up, you want to determine whether they are acting up only in school or also at home. Another example is a man who's fearful of crowds and cannot go to work because he cannot board the bus. The third D is distress, or how much one is bothered by the symptoms. This is sometimes said to be related to dysfunction, but it's important to note that there is not a linear relationship between the two. Sometimes the severity of the dysfunction distresses the individual, but sometimes it does not. So the central component of distress is the extent to which the issue distresses the individual, not the objective measure of the severity of the dysfunction. Hypochondriasis is a good example of this. The distress of the preoccupation of the disorder persists in spite of the medical evaluations and reassurance. but hypochondriasis doesn't necessarily have to be affecting the individual's daily life. And the last D, danger. This involves danger to the self or danger to others. But how can we determine if something is dangerous enough to warrant a diagnosis? That is something that will depend on the situation and the psychologist that you work with. Now that you know a little bit about the 4Ds and different cultural practices, click on our next video to learn more about cultural barriers and health beliefs.